Welcome to the basement shop, home of the Buildist. Pull up a chair. We're about to get started. Good morning and welcome back to the basement. So I have a lot of drill bits. I have a mostly complete set of drill bits that I reach for over in these two organizers. These are numbered drills, and these are 1/16 up to 1/2 inch by 64ths. And I have this tray next to the mill. It has a bunch of reamers and accessories and that in it, but then it also has drill bits from size 1/2 inch up to 1.25 inches. It's nowhere near a complete set, but it's a decent representation of the size transition from there up, and I can usually find something pretty close to what I need. And then I keep some of my larger, longer drill bits in this channel of this drawer. This drawer is for drilling and driving. So I've got big drill bits over here. I've got carbide tip drill bits that I keep right here. And then I've got kind of 1/4 inch and smaller drill bits that I keep in a pile here. And I have this organizer that I really like. I got this for Christmas, probably been 7 or 8 years ago now. And it just goes from 1/16 up to 9/32 uninterrupted and gives you several of each because, you know, the thing is, especially these smaller drill bits, they break off. They're not consumable in the classic sense. They're not really intended to be broken or ruined, but they do break and get ruined all the time. So you need more than one of this size drill bit. You need a small inventory of them. And that's where this organizer comes in. These drill bits are all substantially the same size in each tray, and that way I can tell exactly, you know, what drill bits I have in stock and what drill bits I don't, because I found myself ordering drill bits thinking that I had only 1 or 2 of them, and then found out that, oh, I already have 6 or 8 or 10 of those in stock, and buying those drill bits was a mistake. So trying to kind of begin to arrange all my drill bits in singular size sections so that I can keep track of how many of this size drill bit do I have, do I need more of them. The problem is that I very soon ran out of sections. I have this organizer filled up nicely, but I would need 6 or 8 more of them to go through this pile and get these arranged nicely. And when we look in here, we can see that I have that same problem basically all the way up to size 1/2 inch. I don't know how many of each drill bit I have. I don't know if I am running low. I don't know if I need more of them. I know that I have a million of them, but finding the one that I need is frustrating and time consuming. So what I need is to organize all of these drill bits. Now those of you who have Vidmar cabinetry know that I could just take a drawer, or perhaps 2 at the most, of a Vidmar cabinet and break it out into sections and organize all my drill bits into those sections. This is the closest thing that I have to a Vidmar cabinet, which is a hardware cabinet I made a while back, and it holds 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2 inch nuts and bolts. And my plan is to add a section onto this cabinet. I think that I can still get access to these files okay. If I make this cabinet 4 inches taller, I'll still be able to reach back there and find the files. This cabinet will get 4 inches taller, and in this 4-inch taller space, I'm going to have all of my drill bits organized by size, with a decent size container for each size of drill bit that can fit, you know, let's say at least 6 or 10 of each individual size. So when I draw that up in a CAD drawing, it looks like this. We have the smaller drill bits to the front and the left. We have the next kind of section of drill bits immediately behind that. And then as the bits get progressively larger, we have to slant them more and more dramatically to get them to stay within the 4-inch height that's specified of the organizer. So this row is not angled at all. They are all sticking straight up in the air. This row is angled just a little bit at about 15 or 17 degrees. This next row is angled fairly strongly at about 45 degrees. And this row is practically laying on their sides, angled back towards us at about 65 degrees. So as a practical matter, I need 4 blocks of wood that have these series of holes drilled in them of a certain size and a certain depth and a certain spacing, and that I will assemble those 4 blocks of wood into this one cabinet drawer shaped unit. So, having spent the time to design the 4 blocks of wood, it shouldn't take too long to drill them out and assemble them together. Along the way, however, I have had to create this custom drill bit extension. This is an 1.5-inch Forstner bit, and I need to drill as deep as 6¼ inches. And as you can see, it doesn't drill anywhere near 6¼ inches deep. So I manufactured this on the lathe. All it is just, a hole to receive this stem, a couple of set screws to lock onto it, and then turn the shank down to 1/2 inch to fit up into the chuck. And now I can drill this 6¼ inches deep. Based on their size, the first 2 chunks of wood can just be cut out of this random scrap of 2x4. The next 2 chunks, the holes are up to 1.5 inches across, so I need wood wider than 1.5 inches to drill that hole into. So for those pieces, I'm going to use this 2-inch by 11-inch piece of spruce that I found alongside the road. You can tell by looking, it used to be somebody's fireplace mantle. I've kept it around for a while, not sure what project to use it on, and might as well use it up for this project. So I'll cut a couple feet off of this, and it will be the thicker wood for the larger bits. Now I want these holes, the holes that these drill bits are going to be sitting in, I want them to be flat bottomed. I don't want them to have the taper that a regular drill bit would leave. So I'll be using these, kind of Forstner style bits. I have the holes on the drawing specified as 9/16 of an inch for these small sizes. This is a millimeter size, which is a 1/2 millimeter larger than 9/16. That'll be fine. It just needs to be right in that ballpark. So I'll be using this one. I'll be using a 1-inch Forstner bit from my set, and this 1.5 inch Forstner bit from my set. So let's start with doing the small one. That should be very easy and uncomplicated. Okay, so I have zeroed up the bit on this end of the board, and I have zeroed it left and right, front to back. And then I have pulled the bit down till it touches the surface and set the z-axis to 0. So now this will tell me how deep I'm going, and this will tell me how far I've moved left and right. So all I have to do now is follow my little drawing of how far apart to put these holes. So the first hole is 0.527 from the end, and then they are 875 apart. They're each 3/4 inch wide, which is the size bit that I have in here. So all I have to do is move over 527, drill a hole. First one is to a depth of 2.735. They get progressively deeper as we go, and 0.875 in between them. Looking up at the DRO to get my 0.527. First hole's done. I clearly need to kind of clear the chips in between, or I will get smoking. Moved it over 0.875. And this hole goes a little deeper. This one goes 2.735. And there it is. I just finished the last hole. So we've now marched these right across. Now, I don't know if you can tell by looking in there, but these get progressively deeper as you go. That one's 2.5, that one's 3.5. And these will correspond to 9/64 through 15/64. And as you can see, the height will, the stick out will be similar. I will do the other three more or less the same way, just adapting to whatever the situation is. That one is complete. Alright, so for this one, because I need to drill these holes 6 inches deep, and my quill only goes down about 4.5 inches, what I've done is I mounted the bit in the chuck and brought the head of the drill down to where it almost touched, and just drilled as deep as I could, which is about something like 2.5 inches deep, all the way across here, to get the spacing correct. Then I went and measured the exact depth that each one represented. 2.426, 2.370. Then I subtracted that from the desired depth, and that gives me this number down here. This is the further depth that I need to drill from where the hole is currently drilled. So what I do now is I take the extended bit, put it in the hole, and then rotate it and put it up inside the chuck, all the way to its deepest part. So here's my location. So now I can just bring the quill down till the bit is resting in the bottom of the hole, reach up here and mark this as the 0 point of the DRO, and I know that from here I need to go an additional 2.712 inches. Fire the machine up, run it down until I hit 2.712, and that tells me that that hole is the specified desired depth. So I'll just step through these and do each of these to the depth that's specified. And there we have our hole to the desired depth. I'll do that 6 more times, and then these will be all done. Alright, so now that I have all my holes drilled, now what I have to do is get these pieces angled over at the angle they need to produce the height of this drill bit to be the same as this height. The idea is to have a flat surface across here that has drill bits, some of them sticking straight up, some of them angled a little bit, some of them angled very sharply, to where the user is presented with a flat surface with drill bits sticking out of it in the appropriate holes. But the angle of the hole is what, controls how deeply that drill bit has to go down in the surface. I want this surface to be 2.5 inches so that the overall height can be about 3.5 or 4 at the most. So this one I've calculated from the drawing needs to be angled over about 12 degrees. So I have the saw blade set to 12. I've run the bottom side through and tested that it works. So now I'll take a pencil and I'll mark this line of where this piece needs to rest against there, and I will, cut off here. And then I've given it a sanity check. This is for this size bit, that's for that size bit. They're about the right height. We just need to cut away some of this extra wood so that they are, a little more exposed. But overall, that's going to be a very nice presentation. Now this next piece, I need to cut at a 57-degree angle away from center. So to do that, I set the blade as far as it can go to 45, and then by putting this bolster under here that tips this up another 11.5 degrees. So that gets us very close to 57. So run this through, and now this is going to sit very close to a 57-degree angle. I'll carry this over and finish it off on the tall bandsaw, and then hit it with the block plane to smooth it out, make sure it looks decent. Alright, so now I have the rough angles cut for everything, and now I want to snuggle these two pieces of wood together. And I have planed off this corner using a jack plane, and then I have lined it up and marked it like so, and that is now the line I need for these to be able to snuggle together. So I mount it in the vise lengthwise like this, take the jack plane and plane straight across flat until I come down to meet that line. And now these two pieces of wood snuggle up properly together. The next set will sit like so, and the final set will sit like so. So there is a representative sample, and as you can see, the Z height for all of them is about the same. Now these are laying lower than they otherwise would be, but you know, I've left room here for 6 or 8 or 10 bits of each type. So once this hole is filled up like this, then the Z height will be up here and will be just enough for this drawer to slide into its opening. Now, to be honest, I'm not very impressed with my own smoothness or lack thereof in this cut angle. I ended up using a standard rip saw, and I went off of the proper direction and started cutting down into here. What I'm going to do about it is, you know, once I have these all glued in place, I'll be able to do a little sanding and a little smoothing, polishing if you will, and hopefully it won't look too ridiculous, but it's not as professional as I would have liked it to be. So with the actual holes for all the bits drilled, now comes the relatively straightforward job of extending this cabinet upward. So just like the other drawers in this cabinet, this is going to be the base of the new drawer. And I've cut these rabbets out of these pieces that will sit here, that will provide the same runner, the same slide. So I will attach these in place on these two sides, join them across the back, which of course will square them up, and put just a 3/4 plywood top across the top of it. So what I will try to do, I will screw a sheet metal cleat right across here to, you know, to kind of join this face to this face, kind of keep it located. That should make it, you know, strong enough, square enough. Then all I have to do is, you know, cut some sides that are this width and, you know, build a square base onto this drawer bottom and put these things that I've just cut, put them into it. So this is the sheet metal cleat that's going to join the two. Just finished drilling all these holes. I think they're 9/64, and then give each one a little bit of a countersink. And when you're working with something like this, that there's no reason to lock it down in the mill vise. You know, I just leave the mill vise in place and just lock this little plywood temporary fence. It just has a little cleat that the vise can get a hold of, and it just provides you know, basically a consumable, you know, drilling face for the back fence, just that you can hold pieces, you know, fairly consistently. So there's those drilled and countersinked. I'll, you know, do the rest of these holes and we'll screw it together. Alright, so here is the cabinet itself finished. I did not have any 3/4 inch plywood. I had this, what is this, 3/8 I think. So I edged it with this oak hardwood. You can kind of see the profile. I rabbited it out, glued this joint between the oak and here, and while the glue was wet I actually clamped this to have a bit of a bow, just to be sure I don't want this hanging down and hitting the drawer when I try to pull it in. If anything, I want it to be sprung upward. So, and then a masonite backing, which, you know, keeps it really square and secure. So now all I need is to finish the drawer. So next I'm ripping these sides 3.5 high here, 3 5/8 here. Due to the nature of the hardwood front, I have an 1/8 inch additional gap at the top, so might as well fill it up with the drawer front. So all I have to do now is attach these at the corners and attach them all on top of this plywood drawer base. So here is my working drawer. Slides into the slot real nice. I just screwed these sides together and then screwed up through the base into them. Now the last thing I will do, I will put a metal reinforcement right here. Screw into it from the side, screw into it from the front to lock this top front corner where it gets pulled open. So I'll do that next, and then we will be ready to insert the contents. Well, there the parts are, just loosely fitted in the drawer. I'm pretty pleased with how they're fitting. It looks at this point like everything is going to fit, with one exception, and that is this. This bit is sticking up above the plane of the case. It will hit the drawer if I slide it in right now. So what I can do about that is I have to remake this piece with a compound angle, which is to say they are partly this way, but they are also tilted over, well, I guess we'll tilt it over this way. And that way that 9/64 bit can be at that angle and at that angle. In fact, maybe I could probably just do this angle and get it over with. So these bits will, you know, kind of all slot in this direction down that way. I will recreate this piece and then bring you back once I have that thing created. Alright, so this is the final configuration. As you can see, we got these leaned over. Now the next thing is to just fill this entire gap with wood and just drill some random, probably drill some 1/4 inch and some 1/2 inch holes, give or take 1 inch deep, just to give myself a place to stand bits if it's helpful. And then I'll just have this big open tray for larger bits to rest in. Alright, I made up some additional filler pieces to come all the way across the front. I have some 1/4 inch shallow holes. I have some 1/4 inch deeper holes for things like spot drills. And then these I counterboard. I have some decent sized countersinks that I think can live in here. So put those like so. So that will just sit there. And then clean these up a little bit with the plane, just really more for aesthetics than anything else. So that'll go there. I'll go plane this a little bit so we get a good tight joint across here. And that one will sit down in there like so. So there it is. I think that's going to look great. All I'm going to do is screw a stop down here. This will rest against a stop here and nestle down into there. And then this one won't need any attachment at all. It can just rest there. There again, gravity will hold everything still. And then I cut this piece, this out of a 2x4. It's a little bit keystone shaped because that way you know, it helps things not to get down in this corner and hard to get a hold of. Just makes it a little bit easier to get a hold of things. I'll screw through the bottom of the plywood up into here to lock this in place. Now before I load it up, I realize there's one last thing that I need, which is labels. I've given some thought. I have a little, you know, plastic label maker I could use. That's going to wear off. It's not going to hold up. So I had this brass tube that's from an old magazine rack, and I set the blade on the table saw real low and ran this tubing through to produce these narrow brass strips. And then I just took a 1/8 number stamp, made a mark with a Sharpie, you know, of where the number belonged, and went through and stamped these. But I need to go stamp the rest of them. And this one I will actually do kind of upside down. This one is, you know, the curve of the pipe is laying down in the valley. This one will be riding up over top. But I'll go through and get this one stamped, and then we'll create some smaller ones, you know, to go up in here. And then
I will just drill and screw these in with little bitty brass wood screws. So that will be a nice permanent indicator of what bit belongs where, and should hold up, you know, pretty well over time. And last thing is a handle. I made the handle out of the rest of the cabinet out of aluminum channel. Now the channel I had before was a brushed, and this is a polished. So I just took a piece of this polished, cut it to the same general dimensions, and then stuck it on the belt sander to give it a brushed appearance. This will be drilled and tapped, and then screw will come through the front of the drawer face, through the front of the face, and screw into here with just enough left, just enough, you know, to get a good thread purchase, not enough that you can feel it to your fingers. So we'll get that screwed on and put all the bits in it. And here it is, ready to be loaded with bits. I went ahead and stamped all the brass numbers in the appropriate location. You know, in a perfect world, would I use some, you know, brass plate and make it a little cleaner and nicer? I suppose. But fundamentally, its job is to store drill bits, so that's what it's going to do. And then I treated the whole inside here with boiled linseed oil. I just realized when I showed you that, I need to go ahead and treat that part too, which I will. I've already got it out. Just blow it out a little bit, wipe it down with some linseed oil. And that will just, you know, help keep the moisture in the wood, help to kind of preserve the wood from completely drying out and cracking. It's already pretty old, it's already pretty dry, but, you know, it can't hurt to give it a little help. So, I'll finish up that last little bit of linseed oil, load the thing up with bits, and put it all back together. And there we have it. A new layer to the cabinet. A drawer that slides in and out that now contains all of my drill bits. Big, bulky, long bits over here, and everything up to a 1/2 inch over in here. I have a little room for expansion. Things like center drills and that kind of thing can be put in there. And true to its purpose, what it revealed after I loaded it up is that I am very, very low on 9/64 drill bits in particular. I own one of them outside of, you know, the actual drill index. So I'm not completely out, but I have very little spare to speak of. So I need to order some 9/64. I could use maybe an extra 17/64, maybe an extra 23/64, but neither of those are super, super critical. For the remainder, I'd say I'm doing pretty well. And now, more to the point, all my bits are in one place, and I can tell at a glance what I have, what I need, and I can reach in here and get any bit that I need without the slightest difficulty. And with that, thanks for watching.